Good morning, everybody. Now, over the last few days, there has been a concerted attempt to push a new narrative in the UK and other countries in the West that we need conscription, that young men who live in the UK need to join the army because in a few years' time, sometime within the next 20 years or 10 years or 5 years, Britain and the West will be at war with Russia. Now, the amazing thing is that the vast majority of people have seen this and roundly rejected this new narrative because most people think this is abject nonsense. There is no reason to talk up a war and a future war with Russia. Russia is concerned with eastern and southern Ukraine and stopping the Ukrainian security forces and armed forces from bombing ethnic Russians in southern and eastern Ukraine, which is what they've been doing since 2014 when the US deep state under Victoria Nuland and other people instigated a coup in Ukraine. And then real National Socialist brigades like the Azov Battalion started bombing ethnic Russians in those places and killed 14,000 or more ethnic Russians from 2014 up to 2022 when the start of the current large-scale conflict or special military operation as it happens. Now, we know that that isn't going well for Zelensky, the Zelensky regime and the Ukrainian forces. And despite being given huge amounts of money and then small weapon systems, medium weapon systems, more missiles, more and more advanced equipment by NATO countries, they're still doing badly in that conflict. And last year, the Russian forces took the key city of Bakhmut, which was on one of the key roads, and now they're about to take the city of Avdiivka. And Avdiivka is near Donetsk. Very, very close. It's only a few miles or kilometers away. And for 8 years, Avdiivka was the place where Ukrainian armed forces launched ballistic missile attacks and shells and so on across the front line into Donetsk, which is the largest Russian city in the autonomous regions, where mostly ethnic Russians live. So with Russia now pushing into Avdiivka, and they're about to take that city, Donetsk is essentially safe. And that's the key objective of the Russian armed forces, to protect ethnic Russian people, to stop them being shelled and killed by the Zelensky regime, who is basically a puppet of Victoria Nuland and other people in the American deep state. So back to the UK, they know that it's going badly in Ukraine. They put all this money in, all these weapons into Ukraine, and their little schemes. Obviously, there's a lot of kickbacks for people in the government, people in military companies, military industrial complex companies in America in particular. They're going to start losing out on whatever kickbacks they've got. They know that it's going badly. And the money laundering which is going on, the corruption which is going on in Ukraine is about to come to an end. So they're desperate to keep it going. And so now they're propagandizing that the idea that there's going to be a continuous perma-war with Russia, which is absolute nonsense. It's the wrong future for the world. It's the wrong future for the West and for the UK and all the other countries in the West. We should not be enemies with Russia. The people of the UK, the people of Britain, do not feel animosity to Russia at all. It's only the people in the government and in these horrible globalist, warmongering political parties, the fake Conservatives which are in power, Labour, the Lib Dems and Reform UK are all warmongers who would all stoke up tensions and keep this war going. And they are deplorable, and they need to be gone. So please, if you're involved in politics in any way, if you're thinking about who to vote for or what to do to stand up to this, come and join me in the Heritage Party, because we are an anti-war party. as well as being pro-life party, pro-traditional family values, for national sovereignty, and all kinds of other good things. But from the very beginning, I've said, and other people in the Heritage Party have said, this is wrong. We should not be escalating tensions with Russia. We should not be escalating the situation in Ukraine. And it could have stopped. And if it weren't for Boris Johnson going to Zelensky in April 2022, 2 months after the start of the current conflict, if he hadn't gone there and persuaded Zelensky to U-turn on a peace deal, this would all have been over nearly 2 years ago. But it didn't. It's carried on, and that's one of the most deplorable, shameful things that our country is responsible for. Not the people of this country, but obviously the leaders of this country, in concert with the current leaders in the USA and NATO countries around the world who want to keep this going. It's the wrong future. But as for conscription, what happened in the UK is there's the outgoing Chief of Staff of the Army, Sir Patrick Sanders, made a statement saying that we need to train and equip a citizen army. And this was in the context of, a future conflict with Russia, potential future conflict with Russia, and also the things that are going on in the Middle East as well, where tensions are being ramped up and escalated, obviously with UK, US military action against Yemen, which is another ridiculous thing that we shouldn't be getting involved in. We should not be getting entangled in faraway conflicts which don't concern us, which concern third parties. They need to sort themselves out. We should not be getting involved in any way, rather, except to try to de-escalate tensions, stop the slaughter of innocent people, and stop giving money and weapons to people who need to sort out their own conflicts and pipe down, essentially. The only legitimate reason for us to take military action is if our own country and our own realm is under threat. And that's not the case in Ukraine, and it's not the case in Yemen. But there we go. This Sir Patrick Sanders was starting to talk up the idea that we need conscription. And I could see one of the reasons is because the number of people joining the army has gone down and down and down. The number of people joining the, obviously the Air Force and the Navy as well has gone down and down over the last 30 or 40 years. I mean, at the height of the numbers in the UK military, there used to be about 800,000 people. That was at the end of the Second World War, obviously, but 300,000 to 400,000 has been what the total military was through the 80s and sort of into the early 90s. Now it's less than 200,000, and the army itself, not including the Navy and the Air Force, has gone well down below 100,000, and it's going down. At the moment, I think it's under 75,000. So there is a recruitment crisis in the army. But the reason for that is because all the military forces have gone woke. I mean, they're trying to encourage LGBT people to get into the army, and women and ethnic minorities, rather than actually, going to their base, which is young white men, and saying you can have a fantastic career and be excellent, but you go to the army and the first thing you do is a diversity course. I mean, who wants to do that? I don't blame people for not wanting to go into the army. It's shameful what they've become and how they're sort of parade around in rainbows all the time. Compare recruitment adverts for the British Armed Forces and the American Armed Forces, which are all about diversity, to the Russian Armed Forces, which is all about strong, masculine men being strong and masculine and powerful and winning. But this is not the message you get from the British Armed Forces anymore. It's you go along, you can be weak and you can ponce around in rainbows. It's going to be attracted to that. But now they need people to continue their fabricated aggressions against nations we should not be trying to be enemies with, like Russia. So the right future for the West is to de-escalate the situation in Ukraine, It is to get back to normal relations with Russia. It's to de-escalate the situation in the Middle East and to try to pursue peace in whatever way between the Jews and the Arabs in Israel, Palestine. They've got to sort themselves out. It's up to them. It's not up to us. We just need to try to facilitate de-escalation in whatever way we can and ceasefire in whatever way we can. It's very, very difficult, I know. But for the armed forces, I'm in favour of having a larger armed forces, but it has to be voluntary. And the fantastic thing is that people have completely and roundly rejected this conscription narrative. And, 80 to 90% of people who are asked are saying, no, we shouldn't bring national service back. And the people who would be affected by that, which is the young people who have got no animosity to Russia, it's the older people in the fake Conservatives and Labour and Reform and Lib Dems. They seem to have the animosity to Russia for some unknown reason. It doesn't make any sense. But young people who would be recruited and conscripted don't want it. And that's fantastic. And as well as, majorities across all the generations and men and women and all ethnic groups as well have roundly rejected this conscription narrative. To fight other people's wars for other people's benefit. And all these people who locked the country down, who coerced people to get injected, who under the threat of losing their jobs and losing their freedom and losing their right to travel, they do not care one jot about the people in this country. They are utterly appalling, all these globalists. And as I said before, it's great that the people of Britain, the ordinary good people of Britain, have roundly rejected these warmongers and are saying no to conscription, no to war.